Welcome to our January 26th edition of Golden Black Live. Thanks to our sponsors, Triple X, on the hill but on the level, the Purdue tradition since 1929. State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. We also thank the good folks at WLFI for helping put this together. All right, we lead off the show with Brian Newbert, and Brian has been inundated with Purdue men's basketball, and the Boilermakers #2 team in the country, as most of you know, fresh off of a romp over Michigan and headed to Brian's neighborhood, so to speak, Rutgers, for a match.
I prefer the term natural habitat.
Okay, your natural habitat. Well, in Jersey, that's the way it works, right? What is it? Dylan says in Jersey, everything's legal as long as you don't get caught. So one of my favorite songs, but that's another thing. All right, Brian, obviously Rutgers, and the narrative is, which is maybe somewhat silly, but we all, at least for me, I look at, well, they've lost 3 in a row there. They've lost Purdue, and it has nothing to do with this year. Rutgers is probably not quite the same team it was, certainly when they beat Purdue on Harper's half-court shot, or even when Rutgers beat Purdue in West Lafayette last year. But what do you expect? I mean, Purdue has shown well on the road at Iowa and Indiana, and kind of taken care of business with teams that were desperate for wins, Indiana and Iowa. And Rutgers probably in the same boat if they want to get into the NCAA conversation. A win over the #2 team, not the #1 team, might be a good thing. But what do you expect to see on Sunday?
I would expect Purdue to take this one a little bit personal.
Yeah.
I thought Purdue took the game at Indiana personal, and they kind of owe Rutgers one. I don't know if any of that external stuff really matters in the locker room, but I just think Purdue's history with Rutgers here, losing a couple in Jersey Mike's Arena. Sorry, it's a possessive.
It's his arena.
It's his arena. It is in fact his arena. Oil and vinegar everywhere. Anyway,
yeah.
No, I would expect Purdue to take this one personal and kind of go into Rutgers with its eyes wide open to the reasons why Purdue has struggled with Rutgers. Rutgers has, been tougher. They have played really hard. They have made it hard for Purdue to execute offensively. They have blunted some of Purdue's strengths on the glass, things like that. And I just think Purdue's primed to take on a very different Rutgers team. Part of what's made Rutgers good over the years under Steve Pikiell is they've had continuity in their program. They've played a certain way, and they've always kind of played like an underdog. And I think a lot of those things are kind of off the table now. That longstanding core of Ron Harper Jr., Geo Baker, Paul Mulcahy, and Caleb McConnell, it's all gone now. Those are the guys that Purdue struggled with to a certain extent. They're playing the same way. They're tough. They're pretty good defensively, but they really struggle from an offensive perspective. And I think, Purdue could probably win this game relatively easily by scoring 70 points. And Purdue's on a run of 80 something on the road here. And I just think that it would be really, a lot would have to go sideways for Purdue here to not be able to finally get out of the rack with a win. That said, funny things happen if Purdue turns the ball over, if Purdue just doesn't make a shot, if Zach Edey has a really bad game against Cliff Amore, if Rutgers gets a lot of second chances and has an atypical offensive game, you never know what's going to happen. But a lot would have to happen, I think, for this Rutgers team, which has really not been very good this year, to upset Purdue again. But I would expect Purdue to come out, take this personal, understand here's why we've struggled with Rutgers, and do everything in its power, led by the seniors, to get that win in the last arena they need a win in to have run the table in the conference.
Yeah, Morey is really good inside. You're right. But he is running into Zach Edey. I mean, that presents some interesting challenges.
Well, he dunks and rebounds. Dunks and rebounds, and that's scary for a lot of people. But what's scary from a Purdue matchups perspective is guys who can play away from the basket, do some things against Zach Edey, take advantage of him on the perimeter. That's not Cliff. Cliff is a guy who, is going to get on the offensive glass, who's going to catch lobs, who's going to finish uh, when things break down off the dribble. I just think having a big body on him and Purdue being able to throw a lot of big bodies at him is going to, offset some of his strengths. I could be wrong, but I just don't know if he's got enough game to really be the sort of problem for Purdue that Rutgers has always had in its backcourt. I could be wrong, but I just think he's not necessarily the sort of big that can give Purdue problems like the kid at Nebraska, Rink Mast, whatever his name is, did.
Yeah.
Also dominated Ohio State, so I shouldn't talk about him like
No, he's really been good.
like he was a fluke. But no, I just think Purdue should have a big advantage there. Amore's length and athleticism is going to get him a couple blocks. I think that's kind of baked into this. He's not going to be the easiest guy for Zach Edey to finish over. But even if they offset one another, which is a big ask from Rutgers' perspective, Purdue's, still got more weapons here than Rutgers does. So
the rack also are Jersey Mike's apostrophe S. It is a 1:00 game on Sunday. I know that it's the number 2 team coming into Jersey Mike's, but maybe a little more subdued environment than it was at least a couple of years ago, which I think was a Thursday night. Obviously, Purdue was number 1. That's a whole different deal, but or a little bit different deal, I should say. But how much that will matter, one never knows. You've written and talked about the emergence, and I don't know if it's the emergence, but maybe the upgrade of Lance Jones. And Jones is, you talked about him being a complimentary guy coming in, or that was the expectation. He's gotten to be a lot more than that. 24-point effort against Iowa, that being one case in point, but he has played very, very well in a number of different ways. How does that change Purdue's dynamic moving forward? I mean, he is just, he's doing a lot of things that help you win games.
Well, he's obviously completed them in terms of what he's given them in transition, being able to change paces for Purdue offensively. Obviously been a really important defensive player, Purdue's best perimeter defender, probably by a wide margin. His energy, his personality, I think have really, really been godsends for Purdue, for lack of a better term. I've written before that, and I don't know if there's any basis to this in reality, but this season kind of profiled for Purdue like a season-long tension headache because of all the pressure that's going to be on them all year.
Yeah.
And I think bringing in a guy like Lance Jones with his enthusiasm, the joy he carries himself with, I think has been a real plus in that regard. Now, I could be completely wrong about that dynamic actually mattering, but I think he's huge from a team chemistry perspective. The fact that he's scoring the way he's scoring, had you told me back in like August, he's going to be your second leading scorer, I would have thought something went terribly awry. Yeah. And that, Braden Smith or Fletcher Loyer turned into a pumpkin or something like that. And they've been really good. He's just been really good too. Now, the volume of the threes he's taking is a little bit surprising. And I think there's still probably a little bit of streakiness in there. But every time I say that, he comes out and makes 5 threes in the next game. So, perhaps I ought to acknowledge what is actually happening and not what I figured would happen. But he had said last year at SIU that he took too many threes, and that's kind of what I'm going based on. Is that he thought at SIU last year he settled for too many threes. So I guess in these games when he takes like 9 threes, I guess I kind of let his words guide my opinion. But he's making shots. He's making timely shots. He can create shots for himself. I think his decision making is really important from here on out because he's going to have opportunities to drive past people, break down defenses, things like that. I think the early shot clock threes, the 40-footers, are pretty much out of his system.
The shots from Crawfordsville, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think during the non-conference season, you saw a guy who was settling in from being one type of player to being another type of player. But the mentality that comes with being that type of player is helping him in this different role as this type of player, if that makes any sense. I think he's coexisting fairly well with Zach Edey. I think he's coexisting fairly well with Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith. Those guys are very inclusive of him. They This is a team that makes the extra pass, a very unselfish, very good ball movement team, and I think that's probably been fun for him. He's always had the ball in his hands, I think, and now he's showing that he can do something different. So me thinking he might not have been ideally suited for what he's doing now is probably rooted in the fact he's never done this before. I mean,
Yeah.
he's never played with a Zach Edey before, nor have most players before they get to college. He's always been a primary ball handler, not a secondary ball handler, but he's really, really fit in very well in that regard. And I think this Purdue team pretty much has it all. And I don't think that certainly wouldn't be the case if it weren't for Lance Jones, because his speed, his athleticism, his defense, his ability to create for himself has added another layer to this team that really has gone along well with the kind of the big three of or the big four, I should say, of Zach Edey, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and the combination of Trey Huffner and Mason Gillis.
One of the things about Lance Jones passing the ball that got a little bit of viral attention in a TikTok, Twitter moment, and Miles Colvin's disdain, whether it was a 2-second disdain for not getting the ball passed to him. There's dynamics to that we may have no idea about, but just talk about what on the surface, what you see with that, and what that could mean, if anything or nothing, moving forward to this basketball team.
Yeah, I don't know if it was disdain as much as disappointment. He might have felt like he had an opportunity to do something in that situation. Probably reacted a little harshly in the moment. He's young. He's a freshman. This is not a situation he's used to. It's hard, but you think Mason Gillis wouldn't want to be playing more and getting more shots too? That's the nature of this team. Is that people have to sacrifice. There's a lot of college teams out there and a lot of circumstances at Purdue that had they been in place now, he would be playing a really prominent role for Purdue, which isn't to say he's not. He hasn't at times this season. I mean, he's helped Purdue win games. But he's not, this just isn't his time. Next year, things change profoundly for him. He's going to be I would have to think he would be one of Purdue's kind of go-to scorers on a team that'll still have a bunch of them. But he just kind of has to wait his turn. He has to learn. Winning has to be important to him. And I don't have any reason to think that's not the case, but that's the important overlying element to this team for everybody who's not getting what they've probably capable of carrying or have earned. In the case of 3 upperclassmen coming off the bench who started X number of games for Purdue and helped Purdue win a hell of a lot of games, is that winning has to be important to them. And as I said before, I have no reason to think that winning is not important to Miles Colvin, but I think he'd probably prefer to be winning while also playing a pretty prominent role. This is a guy who's been, the best player on every team he's ever played for, with the exception of maybe the USA basketball thing that this past summer. His time will come. It's just kind of hard to be patient when you're young and you're used to being the star. But the biggest thing is that his time will come. In the meantime, that doesn't mean there's not going to be disappointment. There's not going to be frustration. That's part of the process.
I want to throw a football question at you, just because you understand the landscape of the big picture of college sports, but also I want to ask you just about Jim Harbaugh and that move.
Uh-oh.
Has nothing to do with Purdue, but and you only get 2 minutes to answer. But we'll talk about that, and it doesn't have any bearing really on Purdue, even Purdue football, I don't think. From this standpoint, but what do you take of all that? Is that were you one that was not surprised that he was going all along? Well, okay, the clock's going. Okay, there you go. Thank you.
No,
I much appreciate it.
The funny thing about coaches is once they're in the NFL, they always want to go back.
Yeah.
You don't get that out of your blood, and I think him losing the Super Bowl to his brother, I think, is probably always eating at him. The fact that he would have been gone last year, I think, had the Vikings actually hired him. I think he was kind of primed for this. And you know what? This is going to sound stupid, but if I'm Michigan, this guy has been a big winner, and that's all that matters. But you might be better off without some of the drama. I mean, this is a guy who nonsense always follows him, and you know that stuff in the NFL will fly if you're winning. And at the same time, I don't know if he'll cause the same drama in the NFL that he did at Michigan. But you know, Michigan is a really proud place, as you might have noticed, and for them to have been part of some of the embarrassing headlines and the embarrassing brouhahas they were this year. Now they're all biased, so they wouldn't call it embarrassing. They would call it a witch hunt or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, Michigan in itself should carry on. It's one of the best jobs in college football. It's one of the most advantaged jobs in college football. So they'll be fine. What Harbaugh did obviously changed things pretty dramatically from his predecessors, but he didn't do anything out of the ordinary. I mean, he didn't do anything revolutionary in terms of football. What they did was they played defense, they tackled, they ran the ball, and they played good, fundamentally sound football. And they got players, and you should always be able to do that at Michigan's. So,
Are we out of time?
my bad.
Oh,
We're
you're
out
out.
of time. So it didn't surprise me one bit that he left. And
Yeah.
what opens my eyes a little bit is the profound sadness at Michigan when everybody knew this was coming. And like,
Yeah.
how many times can you be the butt of jokes and not let that wear thin on you? He's obviously getting out before whatever punishment might come down is coming down. I don't think they were ever keeping him. I understand they tried to offer him the moon and the stars to stay, but you know, I think he wants a Super Bowl.
Yeah, yeah, well said, and pretty succinctly said. All right, we appreciate your time. Safe travels to your natural habitat, and we'll look forward to your coverage on Sunday afternoon. That will tip 1 o'clock, a matinee, and at Jersey Mike's.
Is it
And
1 o'clock? I thought it was 2 o'clock.
there's a 2. I may have my
It doesn't
time
matter.
screwed up. You'll get there on time. They don't have any games at 1 o'clock. Maybe it is at 2. I don't know why I had it down at 1, but either way, we'll check your local listings and you'll find the time to this game. All right, we'll be back in a couple minutes with
1
our
p.m.
segment.
Right.
Segment 2 will be Mike DeCourcy, and of course Mike Berghoff joins us in Seg 3, and we'll enjoy their perspectives as well. Brian, thanks again, and safe travels.